We should take it in turns every word. Welcome.
2.
44.
And.
1.
Don't.
What?
Fuck. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
You're supposed to say with GVizzle and Tempest.
Oh.
And then it's like subscribe, notification bell, who's and what's it, etc. Well,
I've done fucked it all up.
Yeah. Oh, well. Podcast is cancelled now.
What are we talking about today, Tempest?
Well, I found a funny short, and I think it's probably only funny to me because it is a bit niche. But this is...
It's the best kind of humor when nobody else gets it.
Yeah, which is my life. But this is two celebrities not knowing who each other are.
They fucking went another way? Shit, the chauffeur's still waiting. We got another paparazzi coming. Wait, who is it? Who the fuck is it? That's her. Oh, big fan. Yeah.
Here we go.
Who the fuck is that? Who is that? I never got her fucking name. Jesus. Can someone please tell me who that was? I still don't know. Oh shit. Big fan.
Oh my god.
A celebrity just walked through here. A paparazzi. I don't know. I'm going to hope that someone tells me who it is.
I have no idea who either of those people are. I know him by name, but I would not be able to pick him out of a police lineup.
Well, he is quite a famous comedian in the States and Canada. His name is Brunt Crystals. And
his name is Bert Kirshner. Bert Kirshner.
That's Croatia.
Big nuts.
I spoke about it once in TikTok, and then the captions actually changed his name to Bert Croatia. Even TikTok captions is in on the joke.
They don't know who he is either. I don't think he's as big as maybe he's a big comedian, but I don't know if he's like. He's not a huge comedian.
Depends on what way you're talking about.
Katie Price is. I have no idea who Katie Price is, but it does remind me of a time at an award show where Janine Garofalo, who was a decently sized comedian and she was an actress in a bunch of movies, she was doing like a red carpet and she was like being weird with Mel Gibson. Like, which one of my movies is your favorite? And he had no idea who she was. She got a lot of shit for that.
That's hilarious.
Okay, so who's Katie Price?
Okay, well, so I mean, this is quite funny. Like when his reaction, where he just kind of just said, "Oh yeah, great fan, big fan," and she was a bit weird and was like, "Thanks." It's because do you have in Canada? Have you heard of the Sun newspaper? Like,
yes,
it's one of our tabloids. Yes. Awful newspaper. Anyway, for decades they've been having this segment in their newspaper called Page 3, and it's always a topless model.
We also have a Sun newspaper, the Toronto Sun, and Page 3 is not a topless model, usually just scantily clad. Occasionally they'd have a man, and men would lose their minds. So we also had a Page 3.
It ruined their daily wank at work.
It did. I have to go back to the Sears catalog.
Yeah. It's better than the Toys R Us catalog then, I guess.
Much. So she is a Page 3 girl.
Was. I think she must be in her late 40s now. But yeah, that's where she first made her name.
And then what did she do after that? Because that doesn't seem like something that would require paparazzi following you around all these years.
She became like a reality star for a while because she was on what was it? I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. Have you heard of that?
No.
Okay, so we have like an annual celebrity reality show where like 15 or so celebrities get sent to the Australian outback and then they have to live in a little camp together.
So kind of Survivor-ish.
Yeah, but better. Like the first couple of seasons were good because they had like interesting celebrities and stuff. But she met a pop star on there called Peter Andre, and when he was younger and she was like a teenage girl, she loved him as like a pop icon. He wasn't a pop icon at all, but she loved him. and they ended up hooking up, and then they got married, and then I think they had a kid together, and then she absolutely ruined him.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
not nice.
yeah.
That's not a happy ending. But
No.
that's very similar to, I think it was Celebrity something house.
Oh, Big Brother.
Maybe.
Mm.
I don't remember. And there was a model who had won America's Next Top Model, and her and one of the young kids, not a young kid anymore, but one of the kids from the Brady Bunch also hooked up and got married. I don't think that ended well either.
Well, they said in the film Speed, or was it Speed 2, like you shouldn't form a relationship with someone that you went through an intense scenario with. Like you shouldn't hook up with them straight afterwards because you bonded in that really intense scenario, but you don't really know each other.
That's why I think like shows like The Bachelor and all those dating shows shouldn't have those scenarios, because you could fall in love with anybody in those scenarios. They should make them like, you've got 15 minutes to pick something to watch on Netflix. Go.
Yeah.
You're both you're both hungry. Decide what you're going to eat in 7 minutes. Like if you can make it through those types of things, empty a dishwasher together, fold a load of laundry together. Like if you can make it through those things, then you'll be fine. But like, oh, we're going to take you parasailing on the beach at sunset, and then you're going to be swimming with dolphins. Oh yeah, no shit, we're going to fall.
Well, so I used when I was a kid, they used to have that show Blind Date, and then you showed me a similar clip recently from one of your equivalent shows.
Love Connection.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the Love Connection was awesome. There was also, so the Love Connection, I can't remember how they would decide to go on a date, but they would go on a date and then they would have them like separately talk about how the date went. And then you decide like, do we want to see each other again? Yes or no. But they also had the dating game where you would have 3 bachelors or bachelorettes. You couldn't see them. So you would just ask questions. So you'd get questions to ask. Yes. And then at the end, you'd pick one to go on a date with. And apparently, pew, pew, pew. There was one of the bachelors that was on the show. I don't think he was selected. He turned out to be a serial killer.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. Could you imagine that? Fuck it up. Ours was kind of the same, but I think a bit tamer because it was the UK. And we had Cilla Black, a Northern lass, so she used to do it. And she did it for years. And same format. One person behind a screen, 3 other people sitting on chairs the other side of the screen, and then they get questions asked of them. And they always try to give like rude answers and be a bit cheeky.
Yeah. They would always like, there was Whose Line Is It Anyway? I don't know if you guys had that in the UK, but it was like Drew Carey hosted it, and Wayne Brady, he was fantastic on it. And they used to do like a skit about the dating game. So then he was asked, the question he was asked as a bachelor was something about, I forget what it was, but his answer was like, if you were a vowel, you'd be, oh.
Oh my God. So
it was like so indicative of that type of response.
There was one episode that always stuck in my memory. I mean, bearing in mind this show was on when I was like 10 years old, and this has stayed with me. I don't know why, but I think the woman I think was one of the 3 getting picked, and the bloke was asking the questions, and it turns out that she was Catherine Zeta-Jones's cousin, and still living in Wales, looks a bit like Catherine Zeta-Jones, like maybe about 40%. Yeah.
But was Catherine Zeta-Jones then,
yes.
Or was she just like a young up and coming, or people? So she was known. People knew.
Yeah, she was known. Yeah. And that was one of her selling points in the show. But then, so the bloke obviously
that's a shady selling point.
Yeah. And then
like, take me out on a date, and I'll introduce you to my cousin.
Yeah. And then the bloke obviously picked her because he was like, well, if she looks even half like Catherine Zeta-Jones, this is going to be great. But the bloke, he was obviously focused on the looks, but she was a real shitty human being in the show.
Oh.
So he picked her. Then they go off on their blind date, which was like some kind of, they went to somewhere like remote, like in Norway or Finland or something. And it was like ice everywhere and all that. It looked like a really nice destination, like a proper introvert place. And, but she got really bored of him. And there were some soldiers hanging out at the bar. So, like, they're supposed to be having a date. And she just fucked off and left him and hung out with the soldiers.
But like, it's amazing to me that they didn't get sued at some point because like you're sending two complete strangers off on like a 3-day weekend. They don't know each other. We have no idea who they are. Like, turns out one of them was a serial killer. Like, how?
Yeah.
How do they think? Yeah, this is a recipe for success. Did you have the show The Newlywed Game?
No, not that I know.
So it was
anyway.
in the, I think it was 70s and 80s, and it was like freshly married couples would go on this show, and like the wives would sit by themselves for a moment, and they would be asked questions about their husbands, and then the husbands would be asked the same questions backstage, and they would have to compare their cards to see how well they know each other. But it was a lot of fights happen, like a lot of people getting hit with these cue cards, and a lot of answers that came down to, because it was the 70s, make whoopee.
Make whoopee.
Make whoopee.
There should be some kind of game like that for podcast co-hosts. I think that would be quite fun. Like,
it may go in that direction.
Yeah.
Where like kids today want to be influencers when they grow up, which is weird that is a job description.
Yeah, yeah. And then we could find ourselves like in 5 years' time on some reality TV show.
I'm a washed up E-list podcaster.
Yeah.
Get me out of here.
Yeah.
The entire first episode is just everybody be like, who are you? Yeah. I did that thing. Remember? Pew, pew, pew. Oh, sure. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Oh my God. Oh, the story.
It's like The Masked Singer. Like the first season of The Masked Singer, I knew who everybody was. Like I knew who when they unveiled the celebrities, I was like, oh yeah. By like the third season, I was like, who the fuck is this? What are they famous for? Not a clue.
It's Joe's cousin Fred, who sang Happy Birthday to his niece 22 years ago.
No, a lot of them were like Twitch streamers or other like famous YouTubers, and they count as celebrities, but I was just like, no.
Well, that's when like you see people get called like a TikTok star, and you're like, what? Like, how are they a TikTok star?
I think of a star. I guess it depends. I guess it depends on like levels or whatever. But if I were to like mention their name outside of TikTok, people would still know who they were, right? Like you said, Catherine Zeta-Jones, and it wasn't like, who is that? But like, there's a lot of people who are massive on TikTok. But if I were to like say to my husband, like, do you know who this is? Like,
yeah, exactly. Cool. So you're not a star, are you? Like a star, everyone can see it in the sky. That's why they're called a star, because everyone can see it and they know about them.
But I guess then they're celebrity. I think that's because you could be like a local celebrity.
Yeah.
Right, like that kid that gets stuck in a well every 3 years. He's the local celebrity.
Yeah. So like they should at least say, a renowned TikToker or something. They're not a freaking star.
Well, I think they've downgraded the term from it being like the stars of The Masked Singer to the celebrity. But there was the Circus of the Stars, and those were stars.
Name one.
Circus of the Star. They had Kirk Cameron, who was on Growing Pains. Alfonso Ribeiro.
Oh yeah, I know him.
Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. He was on many, many times, sir. It was also the 1970s, and I was but a wee bairn, so I don't remember them all. I did do a video about it, but it's in one ear at the other.
Been pushed out by all your other pews.
Yeah, all the other useless facts rattling around in my brain. I've forgotten where I live. I can't wander around the streets looking for my house.
Yeah. And then your husband's wondering why you're walking into Bill's house 2 doors down.
Looks like ours. There was a movie called The Big Hit.
Yeah.
Way back in the day. And it was like Mark Wahlberg, who will always be Marky Mark to me. Mark Wahlberg, Lou Diamond Phillips, a bunch of other guys. I think they were hitmen. And the entire movie, there's 2 things that happen. He has to return a movie to the video store, like a VHS. He has to return a VHS to the video store. And because he's moved into this neighborhood where all the houses look alike, he's constantly pulling into the wrong driveway. So he'll pull into the driveway and hear the neighbor inside the house like, wrong house, asshole. And he pulls back out. It was a mediocre movie, but it was entertaining.
But I can't remember if I've shared this on the podcast before, but that actually happened to me in real life. This was years ago. I was living with my mum and sister, and we're just sitting there having dinner. And then this fucking bloke walks into our house, and he walks into our living room. He's like, oh, this isn't my house. Sorry.
How do you not have your doors locked?
Well, not when you're in them. Why would you?
What? What?
We lock it at night, but
To avoid strange men from walking into your house, maybe.
I mean, I've been more careful recently since like the weird TikTok stuff started happening. So I tend to lock the house now, and I lock the house when I go out. If I'm going for my walk, then
You didn't before?
no, if somebody's still in the house, I mean.
Okay.
So
I guess, we don't always lock our doors, but we also have 160 pounds of angry dogs
yeah, which could hit the
behind the doors.
yeah.
But yeah, no, we don't always. But then we started to lock the doors more frequently because there was a story not far from here where these two kids were like on the run from the police, and they were just trying doors to see if they can get into someone's house. So then they just got into someone's house. And
See, we have different kinds of security concerns, I think, in the UK than you do in North America. Like, there's a lot of stuff that's different. I mean, certainly most of the people that would commit certain kinds of crimes, they would have to specifically be looking for people of a certain way to want to go commit a certain kind of crime against them. And because I'm not exactly a wealthy person, I've got nothing to steal, so people are going to notice that. I'm not exactly a risk of being horrifically attacked in my own home because I don't really do anything.
But that runs the presumption that they're planning a heist. Like this is an Ocean's 11 thing and not just a crime of circumstance. Like that happens a lot here. My mother-in-law's house is broken into, and it was two teenagers. They were going door to door and knocking on doors. And if someone answered the door, they were like, "Oh, is Billy here?" Like, "Oh, no, wrong house. Oh, sorry." And then they'd go on to the next door. And if no one answered the door, they would sneak. This is how they got into my mother-in-law's house. They would sneak around back and break a window to get in. But they would take, they took whatever jewelry she had, which wasn't a ton, but they had jewelry. They took her laptop. They took small grabbable things they could shove in a backpack.
Yeah, that's how burglary happens. Yeah.
Yeah, but you're making it sound like it's an Ocean's 11 style heist to get into someone's house.
Sometimes, because there are some, it depends on what kind of area you live in. Like if you live in a really sort of wealthy area where the houses are like $1.5 million a piece, then
I'm sure
it is more of a heist. Like they'll watch you for a bit, make sure that they must be away. One thing I've had happen before is I had an old car that wouldn't lock properly, and if it was my first car. And there was a kind of weird fault in the locking mechanism. So even if I shut the door and locked it, I wouldn't know if it was locked or not on the passenger side. And then so I would never leave anything in the car because I'm not an idiot. And then one day I came down in the morning, and then the door was ajar, and then the charging thing for my for the sat nav was on the car seat when I knew it was on the floor. And it was for my phone. It was the charger for my phone to put it in the cigarette lighter. And they thought I had a sat nav in the car, which I didn't. So
we get that here. There was one morning where all the cars on our street had the doors were left ajar. So they were just testing the doors to see if they were open, and then they were stealing whatever they could and not closing the doors all the way to, I guess, not to make any sound. But apparently that happens a lot.
Well, I think we're probably at risk for different kinds of crime. And then so for us, it's more random. And also you're probably going to need to live in certain areas. Like when I was living in student housing, and I was living with 3 Chinese postgrad students, and one of them had left their bedroom window open while they were downstairs having dinner. And this bloke had we figured it, I was talking to the policeman afterwards, and he was saying what the guy's probably done is this. So he would walk up the back of the houses where there was a dirt track, and just look for open windows. And then when he saw her window was open, he climbed up the back of the house and leaned in through the window and stole her iPhone and a laptop, her Apple Mac, off of a desk which was in front of the window. So the way you stop stuff like that is just by small pieces of just putting obstacles in their way, because they're opportunists. So they're not going to try and do something if they're going to have an altercation with somebody, or if there's a risk of it taking too much time, for example, and stuff like that. Because no lock is unpickable or unbreakable. That's all just crappy selling points. But Um, it's surprisingly easy to pick a lock if you know what you're doing. And Lock Picking Lawyer. Everyone should watch Lock Picking Lawyer. It will destroy all the myths you thought you knew about locks. You can literally pick anything. The guy is incredible. Since then, I just don't trust locks. And yeah, and like these guys, they're mostly just opportunists. And
when my mother-in-law's house was broken into, so the alarm company called my husband. I don't think whatever the reason was, my husband was there, and the police were asking about like alarm systems, and they asked my husband if we had an alarm. He's like, no, but we have like a 90-pound and a 50-pound dog. And the police officer was like, oh, that's better. That's better.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot better.
I mean, if someone, especially like, it's not, you can hear Zool from in the house because she's usually barking from upstairs, but you can see Gozer because that bitch pulls the curtains aside and he like in the window.
Yeah.
So you're not breaking into this house.
And dogs are an unknown quantity. So like a burglar isn't going to want because burglars just want to go in and out as quickly as possible. Like depending
they wouldn't take a risk if there was a dog in the house because either the dog's going to be yappy, it's going to bite them. They don't know what the situation is. They're not going to be able to get the dog to shut up. And presumably they don't want to hurt a dog.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, if you hurt a dog during a house invasion or something or a burglary, then you're going to get shit in prison then. Like if somebody finds out you've done that, you're probably going to have the shit kicked out of you. But
well, you should.
Yeah. And so I think like I'm more careful than I used to be. And I think it's kind of I'll admit as well, I think there's a bit of arrogance there being a bloke of a certain size. And like I've been in fights before, I know what I'm capable of, etc. So sometimes I take things for granted that I shouldn't. I think so you get a bit of arrogance and ignorance, I think, around that. That like, you're like, oh, perhaps I should be more careful than I was being. I think
if we knew every instance in which we were in grave danger, I think we would conduct ourselves very differently in our day-to-day life. Like there was one time that I knew when I was driving and someone like on the highway, we were doing like 120 kilometers an hour and they cut me off so aggressively that I had to like swerve onto I think I told you about this before. I had to swerve onto what's it called?
Hard shoulder?
Yes. I swerved on the shoulder and like there was a bunch of gravel. So my car like spun out a little bit and had there been, because it was like 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning or early on a Saturday morning, had there been a lot more cars on the street, I would have gotten smashed. And like when it happened, I just like swore at the guy and kept driving. But then when I got to my destination, I think the adrenaline kind of drained because then I was like, holy fuck, what was done?
Yeah.
And I think if we knew how many times we had those instances, we'd be much more careful.
Oh, and what they say as well, like in health and safety, for every 100 near misses of a certain thing, there on average there'll be a death for every 100 near misses. So for every 100 of people in your exact situation that have been through that, at least one person is going to be horrifically injured or die. That's not many.
It's a 1% chance, but still.
Yeah, but when you think about the amount of times that happens in your life, it stops becoming a 1% chance. Like, yeah, if every single one is a 1% chance, but you have 101% chances, that's almost a certainty. It doesn't take many.
This is why people become agoraphobes.
Yeah. There was so I was watching a thing on YouTube the other day from Carl Hill, and then he was talking about how if they, it was one about immortality, and if they eliminate all of the things that generally kill humans off, which is like misadventure or illness and all those things. If we could control all of those, humans could technically live for 9,000 years. That's how much stuff kills us off.
It's amazing there's so many of us.
Yeah. I think it's because we breed so quick. Humans like sex too much.
And I mean, there are several parts of the world where birth control is not as readily available.
Yeah. And also it used to be a survival strategy of the species that you would have 10 to 20 kids in your life because 2/3 of them would die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then you needed someone to take care of you when you're older.
Yeah.
Which is still the thought process for many people.
Yeah.
Which I've always really loved when people are like, the first question people have always asked me when they know I don't want to have children is, who's going to take care of you when you're older? And then they'll call me selfish for not having kids. It's like, you are trying to build in a future retirement plan for yourself. And I'm the selfish one.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. Oh, one of my near misses, I nearly got smooshed between two lorries on motorway once. So I was merging onto the motorway, and then so I was, going down the what you call it? Forgotten what it was, but the road that goes onto the motorway, and I was matching. Huh?
Like a merge lane?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know what you call it.
On ramp.
Yeah, the off ramp. Yeah, I was going on. Yeah, the on ramp. Yeah. So I was matching the lorry in front of me. So I was matching their speed. So when I merge, I would be right behind the lorry. Right? That's how you drive. That's what you're supposed to do. The fucking lorry behind me sped up, right, and took my gap, and then was basically tailgated the lorry in front. And I was kind of lucky that the merge lane was so long. So I had an extra, literally just a second or two to make a decision.
Jesus.
And then so there was two merge lanes on this particular road, and then so one merged straight away, the other one went on a bit longer to merge, but there was like a sausage curb in between them. I was lucky that the motorway was quiet that day, because usually there'd be loads of cars down there, and I would have died or something. But my car ended up bouncing over the sausage curb off the other side, and then I was on the other merge lane, and I was able to brake and get in behind both lorries. So I had enough time. But before that, if I didn't do that, I had no braking distance or anything. I couldn't.
Damn.
Yeah, I was like straight away, I realized what was going to happen. I was like, I was fucking lucky.
Yeah. My mom and I were driving a couple of weeks ago, maybe longer than that now, and the rim or the hubcap on a car, like a couple lanes over, and we're on the highway, a couple lanes over, flew off of the car and hit the ground in front of us and smashed. And
Whoa.
As we were driving, I could see that it had hit the ground and was about to bounce back up, but we drove over it when that happened. And then afterwards, my mom and I were kind of laughing about it, and then we were like, if that hit the windshield, we would have been fucked.
Yeah, that's a decapitation.
That's another one of those moments where in the moment we were just like, oh shit, did you see that? And then later it was like, oh my god, no.
Yeah.
At least we were together.
Jesus Christ.
Just ruined Christmas for everybody else, but we're together.
Yeah, it won't affect you. You'll be gone. So
exactly.
I would have had a shit Christmas though.
You wouldn't be the only one.
I'm the only one that matters though. Fuck everyone else.
Okay, sure.
There's another one I had where there was two that showed the two incidences where it kind of just proved why braking distance is a good thing, right? And I was watching a Matt Walsh clip the other day, and he was saying about tailgating on the motorway, and if you're driving slowly, then expect to be tailgated. I'm like, that breaks the highway code, dude. And you could kill yourself if you tailgate people. So
people forget they are driving 2,000-3,000 pound killing machines. They forget what they are in control of.
Yeah, you need time for your brain to react and the car to slow down. And once you build those two things in, there's very little time, and you need a lot of space.
Yeah, your reaction time and your braking distance, and the faster you're going, obviously, the more braking distance you require. And people overestimate their reaction time.
Yeah.
They very much overestimate. But even if it's only a second, that extra second is the difference between life and death for somebody else.
Yeah, totally.
I did this. So I built training, and I was building a training on cargo trucks and trucking claims. And part of it was the anatomy of a truck and where the blind spots are. And if people knew how big the blind spots are on those trucks and the braking distance of those trucks, you would never want to drive near
again. Yeah.
The braking distance is significant. If you can't see the mirrors and how the mirrors go and the blind spots in the front, in the back, on the sides, they're massive blind spots.
Yeah. Massive. I saw one the other day where this guy, he cut up a lorry, and then so the lorry didn't know his car was there. And then, so the lorry driver thinks he's got space behind the car in front, but he can't see the real car that's actually there. And so they stop at this light, and then the car in front of the lorry driver goes, like the one that he thinks is in front of him. So
Yeah.
the lorry goes, and then just collects the car in front because he has no idea it's there.
There's a long
Yeah.
blind spot over the hood, and
Hmm.
there was something else. Caca.
Well, I'll go back to my 2 stories then with the tailgating.
No, stop talking. There's something else about that truck. Oh, most truckers will, if the decision is to hit the car in front or slam on their brakes and potentially jackknife, fucking up all the cars behind them, they will 100% hit the car in front.
Oh, yeah, yeah. What's the sensible thing to do, isn't it? It's like the trolley problem, kill 5 or 1.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, this one that was like, it was one of those big sort of waste trucks, you know, like really big heavy duty ones, and they just have all of that like crap in the top, like concrete and stuff. Yeah. And then so I was doing the proper braking distance, and I still nearly went up the back of it because he had to brake so suddenly because he got cut up with somebody trying to leave the motorway, and the car just stuck in front of him, and then he slams his brakes on, and then it was just like it was like just smoke everywhere from the tires, long black rubber skid marks on the motorway, and then it's just kind of like how your car, like when you're taught how to drive, how it all just kicks in, and it's like you kind of simultaneously hit the brakes yourself, you know, just emergency stop, hit the hazard lights at the same time, and then try and hope to God that you don't go up the back of the lorry in front.
And you immediately look in the rearview mirror to see if you're about to get smoked from us.
Exactly. Fucking terrifying. And then my
husband and I were driving, we had taken separate cars somewhere, and I had the dogs in my car, and he was behind me as we were driving, and like I had made a right turn, and as I was turning, the guy who was I was making a fully legal right turn. I guess the guy who was coming up the road didn't want me to be in front of him, so he sped up, and like he almost hit me. And so my husband, he got home, and he was like, as soon as he saw me, he gave me a hug, and the dog's a hug. He's like, had it been another second, I would have watched my entire family just get smoked. And I was like, and the whole drive home, he was livid with that guy. And then when he saw me, he was like, oh,
oh man, that'd be your heart in your mouth, wouldn't it? I couldn't imagine seeing that happen in front of you and not having any control. You can't do anything about it.
No.
Fuck.
No, that would be horrifying.
Yeah. The definition of horrifying.
Yeah.
And then road rage is a weird one as well. Like how people get so angry over nothing. Like these 2 blokes. So the other one was like, you know, keeping the proper braking distance again. I'm so glad I did. Because these 2 blokes were driving along at like 70 miles an hour, shouting at each other down a dual carriageway.
What the fuck?
And then they nearly went up. Then there was a traffic queue in front of them that they didn't notice. They both slammed on their brakes. The guy on the right, he starts fishtailing, nearly collides with the guy next to him. And then all the other cars, because obviously people can't see because they're in front, so they can't see the traffic queue. And then they nearly went up the back of us as well. It's like, fuck me. Like, and then
it's the road rage is like, there was a story of this guy who followed a woman to her house. I think she was a teacher or a librarian. She was very, very pregnant, and he shot her, murdered her in her front because of a road rage incident. Like,
Jesus,
that is fucked up.
Yeah.
Totally fucked up.
See, this stuff is what, like, when you think about how you do the equations for safety and stuff, and that, like, not locking your door, doing X, Y, and Z, that stuff freaks me out more than anything else. I think is just the random acts of violence that can happen, even though statistically they're very small. But like we said earlier, the chance
happen to somebody.
Yeah, it will happen to someone at some point.
I mean, the chances of winning the lottery are probably smaller, but people still buy tickets every week.
Yeah.
Even if the odds are small, it's going to happen to somebody. Yeah, that scares the shit out of me.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you just sometimes you could be following all the rules, but you're still going to piss somebody off.
Yeah.
Right? Like I was making a legal right turn, and this guy just didn't want me to make, like, I was driving my mom's the other day, and like we were on a 2-lane road, and there was a left turn lane, and I was going to get into the left turn lane. So this guy aggressively goes around me, cuts me off to get into the left turn lane first. And it's like, we're both like, once we turn left, it's still a 2-lane road. You can still pass me. Like, there's no rush.
Yeah.
But this is like, I felt vindicated for the entire drive of my mom's house. So as he was like about totally cuts me off, so I got to slam on my brakes so he can get to the left turn first. Like, as he's in the middle of his left turn, a car came up and made a right-hand turn and got in front of him, and then drove like the exact speed limit the entire time. I was also filled with rage about having to drive the speed limit, but it was tempered by my satisfaction and how frustrated that person was in front of me, because they kept like veering into the other lane to see where they could, like, if they could pass, because it merged into one. So he's like trying to pass, but there was never any opportunity to pass, and it was just like, oh, it was delicious. It was delicious.
That's revenge. Sweet revenge.
It was beautiful.
Well,
and he was stuck there for a while. Like, after it went down to one lane, he was hooped for like 10 kilometers. I was just, oh.
Are you looking for fun new glasses that won't break the bank? Go to zlul.com. They have daily flash sales. You can find frames as low as $2. Prescription, non-prescription, sunglasses, they have it all. Use my promo code to save.
So I had gone through, some of our cops have power trips. I've gone through, oh, you don't say. I went a yellow light, tons of time. Like, it had just turned yellow. There were cars behind me. I had like fully safe distance to go. And then this cop like comes out of nowhere and pulls me over. And he was like, you ran the red. I was like, it was just yellow as I was making my way through. And he was like being such a dick about it. Like, why are you in such a hurry? I'm like, motherfucker, I had tons of time. Like, I had time to go through. And then I give him my driver's license, and on my driver's license, obviously it says I need to wear corrective lenses, and I was wearing sunglasses. He's like, those prescription? And I was like, yeah, obviously they're prescription. So he holds out like a piece of paper or something away from me to be like, well, tell me what this says, to make sure that they were prescription glasses. And I was like,
wow.
How bored are you?
Yeah, probably very bored.
I did a fully legal maneuver, and you're still pulling me over to be a dick about it.
I find some of these cultural comparisons quite interesting, because like in the United States, the police there are quite, I think because of the risks involved with their particular job in their country, that like, you have to stay in the car, you have to put your hands on the wheel, don't move, don't do anything, and then just wait for the cop to approach you. In the UK, years ago, a solicitor said to me, like, yeah, so if a policeman pulls you over, get out your car and walk around and meet them halfway and talk to them there, so that they can't, like, it's harder for them to get a power trip, and it puts you on equal footing with them. Yeah,
I've never tried, because I've always just been, I've not taught. It was always just kind of like, just stay in the car. But like, if I get pulled over, I start collecting. Like, I know they're going to want to see my driver's license and my registration and my insurance and whatever. So I pull all of that and get it ready for when they get to the window. But like, do you know why I pulled you over? When you just stop with the 20 fucking questions.
Yeah.
Give me the ticket you're going to give me. You do whatever you're going to do. Like, one time I got a ticket because I was speeding and I was late. So I told him, I was like, I'm sorry, I'm late for work. And I was about to like get onto the highway. So I was like getting up to speed to get onto the on-ramp. And he sat in his car for like 20 minutes. And when he came back to give me the ticket, he was like, looks like you're still going to be late. I was like,
oh,
son of a bitch.
what a prick.
And then I think I was going to like fight the ticket. Yeah, I was going to fight the ticket. And so my court date was like a year and a half-ish later.
Whoa.
And so because everyone was telling me like, fight it, because the cop never shows up and then they'll reduce it. And like, I would have lost, or it would have been points, demerit points on my license. So I was like, I don't care about the fine. I just don't want the points. So I'm sitting there and I'm like in court and I'm waiting. And then as like my name is being called, is like, it's happened in slow motion. The double doors to the courtroom open and the cop walks in and I was like,
the bastard turned up.
I was totally sure he wasn't going to show up, because like the whole time I was waiting. And
so I don't know if our process for if we get pulled over by a policeman for speeding, sorry, a police officer for speeding, I don't know what happens there, because I've been caught speeding twice, but they were both by traffic cameras. Yeah, and they were both. One was like I wasn't paying attention, and then the second one was an honest mistake. And then they were both within a month of each other. And I didn't hear about either of them because like I'd moved house a couple of times. and then they sent the correspondence to the wrong address. But then the people at the new address never forwarded it on like they should have done. And because we did have a postal redirect, but then that had recently run out and stopped. So they kind of got this sweet spot. So I didn't actually receive the notification for ages. And then what we get here for us is if it's your first offense, you can either take the 3 points and fine, or you can go and do a driving course for like a day.
I don't know exactly how it works out with that type of stuff, but I know like I've been pulled over a few times. They were not busy streets. I was fine, but and it wasn't ridiculous. But like one time I got pulled over because the speed limit was like about to change from 40 to 50, and I was like just a breath away from the sign that said 50 starts now, and a cop pulled me over for going 50.
Well,
I was
that's why they do it. That's why they do it. That's why they hide there.
But often, like if it's usually within like 10 kilometers, more often than not, they'll just let you off with a warning. But I've had other police officers where I was going like 20 over and they knocked it down to 10 so it wouldn't be as much of a ticket.
Okay.
And then there are times, and like the demerit points depends on how fast you're going over. Like if it's a certain, like if you're going double the speed limit, even if you're going like 80 and a 40, which I know sounds like a lot, but it's not like you're going 200 and 100. They can take your license right away and you're no longer allowed to drive. Find someone to collect your vehicle.
Yeah, we get something similar. We get 3 points for a regular speeding offence, and there's a lot of myths that surround it in our country. So people say, oh, if you're 10% over, they let you off, and it's like, nah, that doesn't exist. Like, I think, well, I was over the 10%. I think I was going about 34 and a 30. And it was literally because it was first thing in the morning. It was like fucking 6 in the morning. I was knackered. I was in pain. I was driving to work. And then I was working in Leeds, and they have fucking traffic cameras everywhere, and it's really strict. And I just wasn't paying attention. I was literally just thinking about the work I had to do, and I inched over the speed limit, and I went 34, went through the traffic camera. It flashed me.
Ours,
that was
like,
it.
like it's pretty commonly known, as far as I know anyway, it's like my circle of people, that you don't want to go 20 kilometers over the speed limit. So like if we're setting our cruise control, like if the speed limit on the highway is 100, we'll set the cruise control for 118. So we can be like, see.
Well,
so usually it's past the 20 kilometers over, not a percentage. It's usually 20.
Well, the other time I got caught speeding was on the fucking motorway. So I don't take anything for granted anymore. But this was an honest mistake because being autistic, I tend to follow the rules, right? So I'm not someone that speeds. I don't contravene the highway code or anything, just because I just don't think it's worth my points on my license, and it's not worth the money you have to pay just to get somewhere 5 minutes quicker. Fuck that. So, but on our outside of Leeds, they've got variable speed limits. So depending on the weather and the traffic, even though the speed limit on the motorway is 70, they can change the speed limit, and then it'll tell you on the motorway what the new speed limit is. But I was new to this. This wasn't covered in my driving test. It wasn't covered in any of my lessons or anything like that. I thought that, I was like, well, I haven't read anything about this. This must just be one of those, we suggest you drop your speed to this limit because of the conditions. So gotcha. I went 70, but it said 60 on the motorway. But I thought, oh, I'll go 70 because everyone else is doing it. Anyway, I was one of the people who got caught out. And so I opted that because that was my first offense. I chose the course and I didn't get fined or anything.
I don't know that I've never seen a road here that we have that. We have like different, for school zones in a lot of spaces, when like they'll have these flashing lights. So when the lights are flashing during school times, then the speed limit will be 40 kilometers per hour. And then if it's not flashing, it'll usually be 50 kilometers per hour. And then we have like a lot of streets that go from like 60 to 80, or like from 80 down, like right down to 50. So if you don't know it, like there's a good likelihood you're going to miss that by a little bit. And I don't speed on purpose. I just kind of get into my audiobook or music, and then I look down and I'm like, oh fuck shit. Like
well, that's the thing. You got to pay attention. Like,
I know, that's why I use my cruise control
zone out. But I know, but you shouldn't zone out. Like, you have to pay attention when you're driving. And
I'm paying attention to the road. I'm paying attention to my mirrors. I'm paying attention. I'm just not paying attention to my speedometer. I mean, it's not like I'm going, it's not like I'm fast and furious. I'm not going like significantly over the speed limit. But
if you've seen the difference between hitting a kid at 20 mile an hour, or whatever kilometer that is for you guys. So if you hit a kid at 20 mile an hour or hit a kid at 30 mile an hour,
Yeah,
it is
I've
a
seen it.
huge difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
We had an advert on TV
Kids
where
should stay out of the roads.
but we genuinely like have like some of our PSA adverts we get here are horrific. So like this car hits this kid at 30, the kid flies into a tree, broken bones and everything, and then it
Yikes.
does like a rewind. The kid starts knitting back together, everything goes back, and it's like this is what will happen if you hit the kid at 20. Yeah.
Does it help? Does it make a difference? Because I don't know. I think people in North America are just so desensitized to that stuff. Like looking at cigarette packaging, like when I was a kid and I was smoking, the cigarette pack was just a plain, like I smoked a brand called Demorier, which was a red pack. So it was just a red pack. And then they started to put warnings on them. Like it was a black background with white font that was like, warning, cigarette smoking can cause cancer or can cause this. And that was still not, that still didn't do shit. So then they started posting like pictures of like, here's lung cancer.
Yeah.
Here's someone on a ventilator. And like, it still didn't do anything. We would treat them like trading cards. Like, what'd you get? Oh, you got lung cancer? I got lip dick.
But I think it's because they're not aimed at the person doing it, right? They're aimed at creating a social stigma towards it. So as the number of smokers decreases and as the number of awful driving offences decreases, like the amount of people committing them, and then the stigma increases, it means that when you do something like drive over the speed limit or whatever, and then you hit a kid and then the kid dies, and then people are just more in society are more generally aware of what actually happened and how it raises just like it reminds you why you're doing what you're doing, and it means that the person who committed the offense isn't going to be treated lightly by other people, because everyone else can then say, oh, well, it's your own fault that you did that because, you know, it's your fault you killed the kid, etc.
It's almost like people wait to find out how you got lung cancer before they feel sorry for you.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
When you find someone had lung cancer, did you smoke?
Yeah.
No. Oh, that's a shame. I don't know. I think people are very quickly to lay a lot of blame on one party when like often there are multiple parties.
This is the thing, like there's always two sides to a story, and you know,
Yes.
this is why I just tend not to judge people quickly based on the very little facts I'm receiving from whatever the source is.
I judge them as soon as I see their faces.
Yeah, well, that's the only way you can know, is if you look into their eyes and see their soul.
Yes, you can judge that book by its cover.
Yeah. The smoking one I found interesting because I remember when I was a kid, one of the threats would be like if I didn't behave, then my mum would say, well, then I'm going to lock you in the car with me and I'm going to smoke a bunch of cigarettes and you're going to have to put up with it.
Wow, that's child abuse.
Yeah.
My dad always smoked in the car and he would always roll the window down just a little bit for the smoke to escape. But then he would like ash out the window and then like sitting in the back seat, he'd be like,
get all over you. Yeah.
Or a hot ash would come flying back at you. My dad also used to like to spit at the window. So as soon as we heard him like gearing up for a spit, we were like,
yeah. Oh man, what an animal.
Yeah. And we used to like, it's amazing. Like I remember when I was a smoker, smoking and freely smoking in restaurants, freely smoking in the mall, and like you could smoke in the mall, but you couldn't smoke in the actual stores. So you'd like hold my smoke as I go into the store and then come back out. And now I'm so used to, and then they moved it so you could only smoke at the food court and then you couldn't smoke anywhere. But now like my husband and I are rewatching all these old Columbo episodes, and he's just like walking into people's homes, grabbing lighters, lighting cigars. It's like, what?
Yeah.
Not once does he like, do you mind if I?
Yeah, never ask for permission. He'd probably still do that now as well.
Probably. And like a friend of mine used to work at a bank way back when you could smoke, and she remembers like having a cigarette hanging out of her mouth being like 20, 40, 50, like at work. She was...
Wow, how times have changed, isn't it? And then I think that's kind of what a lot of that PSA stuff is aiming towards, is trying to educate the people that are doing it. So it's like, okay, it's good. Like in my personal view, it's that, well, you can do whatever the fuck you want to your own body. Just be aware of what the risks are, educate yourself about it. And if you still want to do it, then have it your way.
Amazing. It's amazing to me that young people still smoke.
Yeah.
Like there's no illusion about like, I mean, my grandmother was told to buy my dad a pack of cigarettes or to get him cigarettes because it would stop his nosebleeds. And
Yeah.
like once upon a time, it was almost medicinal. And like we know enough now to know that it's like, it's not good for you. But like, I'll drive past the high school and see like kids outside smoking. And I used to be one of those kids, but now it's like, but you know better now. Like,
Yeah.
you know, my niece was, I think when she was 17, this guy she was dating was smoking. And I was like, oh, that guy's an idiot. I was like, no,
Yeah.
just like, I can already tell he makes poor life choices. So.
Yeah. What I find weird about the smoking thing is that if you live in a country where weed is legal, why would you smoke tobacco? Like, the evidence for each one.
Well, because they're very different.
Yeah.
Right? Like smoking weed, you can't smoke weed walking down the street, even though it's just like you can't
Why not?
drink. You can't drink walking down the street. Like you can't.
Oh, we can.
We can't. We can't like take alcohol out and about with you. So you can't walk down the street smoking weed if you were to. And it's also considered under the influence. So it's not like you could smoke weed and like work. One day I took the wrong edible. And like I meant to take a CBD one because my back was bothering me, and I took a THC one. And then like half an hour later, I was like, "How come I can't type anymore?"
Yeah. So some of these things are grey areas that I find really interesting. Like the way that governments decide what is okay and what isn't. Like tobacco and alcohol, like they've ruined more lives and killed more people than anything else. All of the other drugs combined have killed less people than alcohol.
Yeah, like it amazes me that like states and before, I mean, Canada legalized it not that long ago, but like states fight so hard for it. And it's like, but the places that fight so hard, like all the lawmakers who won, right? Who like, it's still illegal, probably went to celebrate with a drink after.
Yeah,
afterwards.
exactly.
And it does more damage. It has like killed more people, but it's shocking to me that it's always been legal. And like, you can't have advertising on TV for here anyway, for tobacco or for weed, but there's alcohol adverts everywhere. Yeah. Like it makes absolutely no sense.
It's worse for your health in every single way, particularly if you have trouble doing it responsibly.
Yeah. And so British Columbia now has decriminalized all drugs.
Okay.
I think it's all drugs, but like, so they've decriminalized it, and people are kind of freaking out about the repercussions of that. But Portugal did that a long time ago, and they saw a dramatic decrease in crime and in addiction levels because people, once it was decriminalized, it was kind of started to get destigmatized. So instead of painting them as criminals, you got these people help for their addiction. Yeah. So it just changed the entire landscape of it. But like in Canada, like weed being illegal has always been unusual to me because it's, I don't know, I've always thought it was weird. But now that it's like, now that it's not, it gets still not something that people are still have a stigma about it.
Wow. That's bizarre, man.
Yeah. Like my dad was a pack-a-day smoker forever. And like one day my sister was burning incense in her room. My dad was like, "Is that marijuana?"
No, I'm taking the marijuana. I'm just
yeah. And like my dad was in a full-blown alcoholic who smoked a pack of cigarettes a day, and he was like, "Marijuana not in this house. Drink wine instead." Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Dad. Yeah, it's honestly balmy because of the way that people react to alcohol as well. And the other thing is that people think that like, okay, all of these so-called illegal substances are really addictive and it's going to ruin your life, etc. And it's like the vast majority of people that take any of these substances, most of them don't get addicted. Like if you think about the amount of people that take opiates for pain medication, right? Like I'm the only opiate addict that I know. And nearly everybody I know has taken opiates for pain relief. And there's one addict out of all of us.
Well, and weed is not, like I know people who smoke weed very extremely regularly, like daily. And once they stop smoking or if they run out, they will have like very vivid and weird dreams. But that's it. That's the extent of it. Where like people have died from alcohol withdrawal because it wasn't done properly. And it's just, I don't know. It's wonky. But it's like the pressure for, if you tell somebody you don't smoke weed, nobody questions it. But like the first time I ever got like shit-faced drunk, I was 16 years old and I vomited everywhere. So I was like, drinking sucks. And I didn't drink for fucking 20 years. But when I would tell people I didn't drink, it was so bizarre to them that they kept trying to push alcohol on me. Or like, I wouldn't drink to get drunk. So I would go out and have a glass of wine. And people like, I thought you didn't drink. It's like, I don't, like, I don't, how do you tell people I don't drink to get drunk? I drink to have a drink. But like, it was just something that I constantly had to talk about with like, yes, I enjoy glass of wine at dinner, but I don't really drink. Like, why don't you drink? What's going on? I just don't drink.
You get sick of saying it, don't you?
Yeah. Well, that's probably why I started drinking. I'm just kidding. Like I drink now, like I know my limits now, or had I figured it out sooner, I probably would have been one of those people who drank, but I tested my limits. I failed miserably. I didn't do it again for 20 years.
Well, and that's the thing, is like, I mean, I personally, I like to be tipsy. I like to just have a bit of a buzz on, but I don't like being drunk. I don't like losing that control. I don't like not being able to think straight. And just like, you know, when your vision goes all blurry and weird. Yeah.
Put your glasses on, dummy.
Oh, is that what I've been doing wrong?
Yeah.
Maybe I need my eyes tested.
Maybe.
Shit.
No, I'm the same. I'm the same. Like like that first time I got drunk, because I hated it so much, I was just like, I'm just not going to do it. Like at the time I was in high school, I was already smoking weed with my friends. I'm like, I will stick to that because I could function with that. Like we used to, you know, smoke a joint and go to class, and I could still learn and do whatever. Where it's not like I would be drinking during the day and go to school. But like I smoked all through high school. And then after high school, I was just kind of like, I think I'm done. There was no withdrawal. There was no like, oh, I'm getting shaky or anything. Like,
I think for me with drinking, like I did drink a lot in my late teens, early 20s. And that's part of growing up where I was. And that's part of the culture that I was in. You know, everybody drank. But like by the time I got to 21, I wasn't that interested in it anymore. You know, by the time I went to uni, because I went to uni late, I didn't drink a drop. I think the girl I was with at the time, we were together about 5 years, and I think she only saw me drunk once. Like out of 5 years, she only seen me drunk.
I got drunk that first time, didn't drink again, and it was. This is an apology to all my friends I hung out with, because I didn't get my driver's license. It's like you can get your driver's license in Canada when you're 16. Or back in my day, now they have like a graduated driving system. But like once upon a time, you get your learner's permit and then you can get your driver's license. So all my friends were driving at 16. I didn't get my driver's license till I was 21.
You bitch.
So, I know. So like every time we would go out, there would be somebody who was a designated driver, and there was me like sipping a Diet Coke at the bar.
I could get my license, but I won't.
Completely sober.
No, I got my driver license. I think I was about 31. I didn't need it before, so I didn't bother. Because I always lived in cities, so I didn't have to get around anywhere. But then I got a job where I had to travel around a lot, interviewing people for research, and I was like, I'm gonna need to drive.
Had I grown up in Toronto is someplace like you don't need a car.
Yeah.
But like I grew up in a suburb of Toronto, and like the transit system was not amazing. So like you'd have to take, like for me, my college was probably about a 20-minute drive away, but it was a 2.5 hour bus ride with like 3 different buses that I had to like change. So like it was very inconvenient not to be a driver. But I had friends who drove, so I was like,
Well, I was in like a catch-22 for a while when I was doing my apprenticeship. My wage was so low, and bus prices were so expensive. And we have a really good transit system in the UK. Like our buses and train services are top notch, but there's a lot of availability there. But I used to have to get 2 buses to work at like fucking 5:30 in the morning. But I couldn't afford, because of the cost of the buses, I couldn't afford driving lessons.
Oh, they should make buses more reasonably priced. And I had like an 8 o'clock class. So to get to my 8 o'clock class, I'd have to catch, because of the way the bus schedules work, I'd have to catch a bus at 5:15. But there was a bus from the one place, like there was one place I had to catch a bus there at 5:15, which means I'd have to catch a bus here at 5 o'clock. But there was no bus there until 5:30. So I'd have to like walk 25 minutes to get to the 5:15 bus. So I didn't go to that. I failed that class.
Oh, when I did my masters, I had to get the first train in the day. This is when I had to get like it's a 2.5 hour trip to get there, 2.5 hours home. And so it was the first train of the day, so it was probably about 5 in the morning. And then I'd have to change in London. And then I'd have to get another train back out of London to get to the uni. And then it was like a 10-minute walk the other side. But yeah. When I was getting the train from Leeds, because like on the days when my back was bad, I'd get the train instead of driving. My God, it was a knife fight at the train stations to get on the train. There were so many fucking people. And there would always be a scuffle. Yeah. And there's one guy, it was kind of like, it's one of those times where you kind of see the regret on their face when they try to start a fight with you and then they realize what they got themselves into and then they back out. Like, this isn't me being a hard man at all, because I'm not. It was just him being an idiot. So we tried to get on the train and then he tried to like proper barge me out the way. But so he kind of like shoved me, but I didn't go anywhere. And then he kind of fell back into a woman, then blamed me for it, started shouting at me as we got on the train. And I turned around to him. I was just staring at him, waiting for him to calm down. And then he was getting in my face. So I just shoved him back. I was like, just back the fuck up. And then he falls over.
How flimsy was this guy?
And it's like, and then knowing me, like, it was funny to me. Like I say, this is not a hard man story. I'm just an average bloke. But like that just shows how ridiculous this douche was.
But like the train's the same. Like people would be elbowing each other to get into trains, and like there was never any. It's like people would be trying to get out of the train and be like pushed back into the train because everyone's trying to rush back into it. And it's like, just let people out, get it. If you don't get a seat, you don't get a fucking seat. Just deal with it. Like
well, we do have, because British people are good at queuing, right? So. It's our superpower. And so the people do get a chance to get off first. The main problem they get is when they're getting off the train, there's not much room for them. And then they kind of have to kind of torpedo their way through the crowd, like Moses or something, parting the sea. Yeah. But most people are quite accommodating. You just get the odd bloke like this dickhead, and then they usually cause a fight or a scuffle with someone.
No, this was like, it was like The Walking Dead. Like you'd see everybody milling about on the platform. And then as they knew their train was getting closer, they'd all start to like converge to where they thought the doors were going to be.
Yeah.
And then
like, they aren't there.
over.
They have to
Then they shuffle over to where the doors actually are and then just like pour their way in.
Oh, man. I've had it with public transport over the years. I mean, like I say, it is quite good in our country and there is a lot of availability. I just get fed up traveling around other people now. I just can't stand it anymore. The amount of trains and buses I've caught in my life. Like when I was at school, like we lived the other side of the city to where my school was, but mum was like, well, we got to be close to your sister's school so she can get to school. And I was like, what about my fucking school?
I also go to school.
Yeah.
Can we live somewhere equidistant?
Yeah, exactly. Oh man, pricks. And then if we had like a snow day, she would still make me go to school, even though there'd be like 2 teachers in the school and 5 kids would turn up. And
it's funny, in my town now, like half the kids in this town walk to school, but if the school buses aren't running, nobody goes to school. Even if you live within walking distance, nobody goes.
It's like an unspoken thing.
This one time, oh my dad. So I was running late one morning. That was pretty consistent theme when I was a kid. I was running late. And so my dad was like, I'll drive you to school. And I was like, fucking A. So I took extra time because I thought I was getting driven to school. No, he was going to drive me to the bus.
Oh my God.
So as he drives me to the bus is pulling out. So my dad starts laying on the horn to stop the bus. So now every kid in the bus is turning to see who's coming. And it was slippery. It was an icy day, so I slipped on a patch of ice and went like ass over tea kettle in a kilt. So like my kilt is like under my chin. And I get into the bus and like everyone's seeing my knickers and I'm like pulling gravel out of my hands. Oh, no. And I'm like, and then my dad like honks again as the bus drives away. And
See you later.
Hi. Thanks, Dad. Thanks.
That's hilarious. Like it's hilarious in a really traumatic way. You didn't get on well with that kilt, did you?
No, I did not. It has scarred me forever because to this day, if I wear a dress and tights, I have to make sure I have to like look between my legs to make sure I see the back of my skirt because of that one time in the 9th grade I got my kilt tucked in the back of my tights. 11th grade, actually.
Well, it's like you didn't meet your husband that day, isn't it?
Maybe it would have been love at first sight.
Yeah. You might have thought it was a mating call.
I was presenting
Yeah.
like a baboon.
I was about to say a baboon.
Not a shiny red ass. They were green tights. So.
But yeah, I was often late, and one day, my mum actually, she gets these funny ideas in her head. I remember when I was a kid one day, I think I said a rude word. I don't know what the word was. I was like about 5 years old. I don't think I even knew what it meant. She literally washed my mouth out with soap. She actually broke up a bar of soap, pinned me over the sink, and held me there and forced the soap into my mouth and made me chew it.
I don't think I swore in front of my parents. I didn't swear in front of my dad because he also didn't swear. So it was like, I knew he didn't appreciate it, so I didn't swear in front of him. But my mom, she swears like a drunk sailor to truck stop. It's adorable. So like I would swear in front of my mom, and like we still swear at each other all the time.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing, is like, for me, it kind of, the abuse like that stopped when I grew up. Like, as I got big enough to stop her doing that, then she stopped.
Got bigger than her.
Yeah. Which obviously as a boy, it happens a lot younger. But like she swears constantly. I remember at school once we're doing a biology experiment. I fucked it up and I went, oh, for fuck's sake. And then the teacher pulled me out of class and was like, I bet you don't hear that kind of language at home. And I was like, no, my mum swears all the time, miss.
Where do you think I learned it?
Yeah. So when I was late for school once, my mum decided it would be a good idea to fill up a bowl of cold water and just dunked it on my head to get me out of bed.
What?
Didn't work.
I mean, I'm happy you can laugh at your trauma now. What the fuck?
Yeah. After that, I learned from it. So, like, I would just change my strategies. So, I would just try a different way of not being able to go to school, but still get to hang out at home. So, like, one day, my mum had gone out to do her job, and then her boyfriend, who was a solicitor, so he worked from home a lot. But I knew he was going to be out that day, so he'd gone off, taken my sister to school, came back, and then I hid in my wardrobe. And I just sat there, turned my phone on silent, and I just sat in the wardrobe for half an hour. And like, he came in my room, he stood there for like 5 minutes. I don't know what he was standing there because I couldn't see him. Yeah, I thought it was a bit weird. And then he walked back out, and then half hour later, he left the house, and I just played video games all day.
I used to hold a thermometer up to a light bulb, and then be like, Mommy, I'm not feeling it.
That's such a good idea. I never thought of that.
Well, it has to be a light bulb because one time I dunked it into tea and the heat of the tea just broke the thermometer, and it was like, I can't say that's how sick I am. Yeah. It's also like a fine line, right? Like it has to be a fever, enough of a fever to get you out of school, but not enough of a fever to be worrisome or like, oh no, we need to get to the doctor. So like I would hold it up for a couple seconds and then check and then hold it up and then like, oh, too much. And like, when I wanted to get out of like cleaning the house, I would splash water on my face and pretend it was sweat, and I'm like, I feel like this.
See, these things would never work because my mum would be like, no, if you're ill, the school nurse will send you home. But that means I'm ill, I've got to get up, go to school, try learning, get sent to the nurse by the teacher because I look so bad, then have the nurse assess me, and then I've got to get back home somehow, which I can't because there's no one at home to pick me up. So I've got to get the bus back home. And
then you're going to make everybody sick along the way and probably end getting worse.
Yeah.
No, my mom was like, if she had something to do in a day, like if she had taken a day off work because she had to go to a doctor's appointment or do something, she'd come into my room like, do you need to go to school today? I'm like, nope.
Brilliant.
She would call me out of school all the time. And then I learned how to forge her signature. So I would sign myself. I would sign notes. Like I did a beautiful job of signing her signature. And like to the point where if she had to sign something, she'd just be like, you do it. So I would sign her signature. And then at my school, I think when you hit like 16 or 17, if you got permission from your parents, you could sign yourself out. And so I suggested this to my mom, and she was like, no, I like how this is going. It's fine. I was like, but you don't even know.
Yeah.
My dad's was tougher. He had a complicated signature.
I never needed to forge signatures. If I didn't want to go to school, I just didn't bother.
I had to in the 6th grade because my teacher didn't want to give detention. So she gave everybody a detention book, and she would give you a homework assignment in the detention book that you had to get your parents to sign. And it very clearly said detention book. So then I'd have to explain to my parents. So after I went through like a couple pages, I was like, I'm just going to learn how to fucking sign this shit. So then I get detention at willy-nilly because I was signing myself.
If I got a detention, it would be that I was around my mate's house after school, and they'd have no idea I had a detention. I once went to school, and I was so badly behaved, I guess, that I came home with 5 after-school detentions in one day.
What?
Yeah, so I had to spend the next 5 Mondays.
My sister once got a detention, and then after school she tried to skip out of it, so she tried to take off. And so like the teacher was trying to stop her because she had detention, and my sister was like, I gotta go, my grandfather died. And then like a month later, my grandfather actually died. And to this day, my sister's like, that was me, I did it. I was like, you don't have that kind of power.
Maybe she does.
Maybe.
Well, I guess it's a good place to fade to black, just like your grandpa did.
There you go. There it is. Salvage the joke.